All right, YouTube, a very good morning. Captain Nabs is here with you once again for another leg of a pilot's life. Welcome back to the PMD G737. We're still flying around in our WestJet airplane. We're working a whole career. When you're working a career, you stay in the same airplane for a period of time. Sometimes it's a years. So we're really only just in our first month here with WestJet. I'm really enjoying it because it's taken me to an interesting variety of destinations. The next couple legs are a little bit repetitive, and sometimes that's the way the airline life works out. I tried my best to try and find a schedule that had a lot of variety in it, but also hit up a lot of certain airports that I really wanted to hit up. Unfortunately, the way the pilot's life works, you can't really control the schedule. It just throws random schedules at you. You can just choose to accept or reject the schedule and move on to the next one. So it's a weird bit of a gamble. And you can't even go back afterwards if you don't like something that you saw, or if you like something that you saw and you decide you want to go back to it, you can't. You just take what's in front of you. So it's an interesting way of generating a schedule. I really like it. But anyways, today we are going to be going ahead and proceeding from Puerto Vallarta, flying all the way back to Vancouver. It's a pretty long flight, so I want to get this flight underway. Once we do that, we got to come back to Puerto Vallarta again in our next leg. So we got a little bit of repetition here. We go back Vancouver, back to Puerto Vallarta again, and then from Puerto Vallarta we go back to Victoria, do the short hop from Victoria to Vancouver, and then do a Vancouver, Winnipeg, and down to Phoenix before we finish off back in Vancouver at the end of our series here, so at the end of the season. So, and then after the season is done, I think I might also take a poll from you guys, from the viewers, through my YouTube channel. I can post polls in there. I would be interested in seeing if you really would like to see some more WestJet, because I really like WestJet and I'm really enjoying it. But I've been looking around and thinking about it, and I've been thinking that there's quite a few quality CRJ operators out there, and I was thinking that I might change this up big time and try to get into a CRJ operator. So the one that comes to mind immediately, probably one of the biggest CRJ operators in the world, is SkyWest. And they have an absolutely extensive network. So it would certainly give lots of opportunity, lots of different places to fly, lots of airports, probably a lot of airports I haven't been to. And of course, doing it in the new simulator with the new Aerosoft CRJ is how we would do it. So lots of potential here. So I'm kind of leaning towards I would like to do this at some point. SkyWest strikes me as one of the best ones because it is a really big CRJ user, and it covers so many different places, and some of its hubs are the hubs that I have in Microsoft Flight Simulator already, Chicago being number one on the list. So I would probably do a Chicago base certainly to start out, and explore a whole bunch of airports from there. There are some other CRJ operators. I think Republic also is a do we have Republic in here? PQR. Oh, I saw it there for a second. Where'd it go? Republic Airlines is a CRJ operator, I believe, although they might be an ERJ operator. Sometimes actually they operate the Embraer, so they have a much less extensive network, operating out of a few specific places. But these are the kind of airlines like I'm kind of looking at now, like who operates a lot of CRJ flights that we could perhaps follow through with. Misa as well, I know. They do also, oh yeah, they got a lot. CRJ7, CRJ9, so that also would be the wheelhouse right there. Based in Houston right now, not any really good scenery in Houston. Dallas, though, we could do a Dallas base and work as an American Eagle carrier, and we could certainly hit up a lot of places from Dallas. So anyways, something I'm thinking about for my next season, guys. I don't know for sure that it's going to happen. I'm probably going to take a straw poll and see what you guys think in the YouTube channel as the season draws to close. But we still got a good, we got 7 legs still to go in the season, so we still got a while to go before we run out of flying to do here in WestJet. So let's get this flight underway because it is a long one today. Cage Cook, how are you? Good to see you again. And let's go ahead and hop in this flight deck and get this plane underway here. It looks like a beautiful morning here in Puerto Vallarta, though. Just a little bit hazy, but definitely a nice morning. So let's hop in. Let's get this party started because it is a long one today, as it almost always is with some of these flights. And why is my that's why my track IR is not working. Sorry guys, give me 1 second. I just gotta set it up here. I had to move around some stuff on my desk yesterday, so I moved my track IR sensor among a bunch of other things. So let's get that right to where it needs to be. That's right about where it needs to be. There we go. Alright, so yeah, we're going to hop in the flight deck. As always, we're going to fire this puppy up here. So we're going to get the battery on. Get some ground power on this airplane. Start those IRSs aligning first thing. Check our overspeed clacker as well. Oops. Come on, you can do it. Sometimes getting to that one switch in there can be a real pain in the butt. There we go. Alright, and as always, we're going to have our FS2 crew helping us out today. So let's bring that up right here, get the secondary window open, and let's just check the configuration. So we do have today, we're not at a gate. There's not very many actual gated or jet bridged gates here, so we'll say we're at a stand that still requires a pushback. We won't be able to taxi through this spot because of ground equipment, so we have to get pushed back. As the X, we'll just say yes. Takeoff thrust, we'll do derated with assumed temp. We'll do a flap 10 takeoff today. The runway's pretty long here. I honestly don't know if we're taking off towards or away from the mountains behind us, so I'm going with flap 10 right now until I figure that out anyways. E-top snow, bleeds on for departure, no anti-ice required. She's pretty warm out there today, I imagine. Takeoff safety crew change for forced return underway, departure procedure SID. Noise concerns, nope. And yeah. Alright, so that's all good. Just give me one quick second here because I feel like this is a little overly sensitive. I thought I set up my track IR, but I just want to double check that it's set up correctly because it just feels like it's a little bit weird. So just give me 1 second. Okay, that's better. Yeah, it was not set up correctly. It looked like it was when I first started it, but then when P3D actually started running it, switched back to its default mode, which is a little bit too hypersensitive, I find, for looking around the flight deck. I do a little move and the thing just whips around like halfway around. So, let's see here. Been out of town, missed a few streams. That's okay. We're out here to have fun. I'm glad that you're back. This is just here for fun and entertainment, and if you can't make it, that's okay. Life gets in the way of things all the time. I feel like I've missed a couple things here, so let's just make sure that the emergency lights are on. Let's get the packs into auto, not that they're going to do much right now without any ground air, but the packs on, make sure the nav light is on. Yeah, everything's on there. Let's go ahead and get this guy started.
Okay, let's get this show on the road.
And hopefully we'll be off the ground, or at least certainly pushed back from the gate within 25 minutes at the latest, and I think we'll probably be doing it faster than that. So the first thing we got to do, of course, is just summon the fuel truck. Please come and refuel me, thank you. And it's been a long day. No, we probably don't need catering. They probably would bring enough catering to get back. And we'll go ahead and get started in the FMS here. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to do it on the screen here. I really do love my my AviaWorks server, but I just find that it's hard for you guys to see what's going on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up this whole flight this way here. So there is set IRS position, and we can start with the route. So it's MMPR up to CYVR. Oops. YVR. There we go. Flight number today is WestJet 2153, I think. 2153, yes. WestJet 2153. So we're going to depart. Alright, let's pull up the weather right now and see what we're doing here. Winds are calm. Take your pick. Dealer's choice, I guess. I'm going to be a good citizen, and I'm going to pick the departure off of runway 22 because that's going to take me away from the away from land, and I'm less likely to overfly anybody who might have a noise complaint. So yeah, if I can, I'll depart over the ocean, where then most of the noise will happen out over the ocean. So that's just being a good neighbor. Alright, so it is the Bob D1 Bravo. I do have the whole flight plan up here. You can see it there probably at the bottom of the screen, right? Yeah, it's all in there. So you can see the waypoints, so we're going to go ahead and get them in there. Let's see here. We do UT4 until Bexall. And then we go direct to CUL. So let's go ahead and, yeah, so the fuel truck's here, so let's first of all just get him underway, because it's going to take a while, because we're going to need a lot of fuel for this flight. So where's my flight plan? Flight plan says I should be blocking 35 tons. Oh, not that button. So let's go ahead and put in 35 tons of fuel. Let's just round it up to 35,500. Always good to just carry on a couple hundred extra pounds, just in case anything happens. Alright, and then we were setting up our route here. So Culiacan VOR. It's got the approximate correct coordinates there. And let's keep going here. Okay, so UT12 to Amida. UT12 to Amida. And then UT12 again. Oh, that must be where there's a climb. There's a step climb in our flight today, so that must be where our step climb is. UT12 to Villa. Nope. Why did it not like that? Probably because it already has a UT12 in there. So what if I was to do this? VYLL. Hey, can I change the Amida to Villa? Yes. Okay, good. Then Jet 92 to Tucson. Jet 92. Tucson. And then we got Jet 11 to Totec PXR. J11 Totec PXR. Barrel Eli Dermot. Oops. Barrel Eli, and then it was Dermot, and then Payne and the Grid's arrival. So we'll just do it this way. We'll do Dermot, and then we'll do arrive, Vancouver. Let's see here. What runway are we estimating today? Flight plan is estimating 26, so we'll do ILS 26 right. And that'll be on the Grizz 6 arrival for 26 Payne transition. And then if we go into route, probably see we have a discon there. So we'll just take our Payne and move it up above the discon, and the discon vanishes. Perfect. Activate, execute, and we have a flight plan. Alright, perfect. ZFW estimate today, based on our flight plan, it says we're estimating a ZFW of 119,000. So we'll put that in. Reserves, we're looking at 27 and 22, so that makes 49. So 4,900 pounds of reserve fuel. Cost index today of 41, and we're taking some extra fuel, so maybe we can bump that up as we go. Try and get there a little bit faster, because it's showing like 4 hours and 47 minutes in the air today, and I don't want to be doing a flight that long. If we can get there a little sooner, more the better. That'll make the passengers happy. It'll make the crew happy, because then the crew will go home sooner. The last leg power setting, max power every time. I'm gonna go with takeoff. Well, we got mountains out there. Takeoff 1, climb 1. We'll do a flex of 39. I don't know. I'm just making up numbers here. We could do it on the tablet here. Frankly, we could do it on the tablet here. We can calculate the performance, but frankly, it's just I just want to get going, and it takes a couple minutes to get all that information in there, I find. So the fact that we have valid numbers obviously means that whole setting worked. It may not have been the most optimal power setting, but it obviously was workable. So, and then that's 148 for the speed. And our FMS setup is done because, of course, we should request boarding because doubtless they requested a while ago. And I did not notice because I was obviously on the phone there for a moment. So, all right. So let's just quickly flow through the rest of the panel and make sure everything is where it should be. The FO should have set everything up. So the yaw damper's on. Everything is normal. All the valves are closed, but the fuel pumps are all on already. Electrical's all good. Get the APU running in just a couple minutes here. We're only starting boarding, so we don't need to run the APU just quite yet. We don't need any lighting, except for the emergency lights. The seatbelt sign should not be on yet because they're just starting to fuel. So the seatbelt sign does not go on until fueling is complete, because that's a signal to the flight attendants that you're fueling and that they have to be mindful of what the passengers are doing, and they also have to remain near the emergency exit so the flight attendants can't circulate up and down the aisles helping people until fueling is done, because they have to be near an exit in case there is a need for an evacuation during fueling. Alright, so the windshield heat is on, the probe heat's not on yet, that's fine, anti-ice is not on, hydraulics are all set up, doors are as expected. Have a quick look here. He hasn't set the cabin altitude yet, probably because I didn't have it set in the FMS. Because FS2 crew would read what you have set in the FMS, and so because I was slow to get the FMS set up, was it 34? 34, yeah. Makes more sense. So they were not on it. Landing altitude 0 feet would be fine for Vancouver. Test the oxygen really quick. And Phase 12 subscribed with Prime. Thank you so much, Phase 12. Appreciate that. I do appreciate everybody who subscribes and just helps support me here. Any money that I make in this, I'm not doing this to make a living. I make an okay living. I used to make a more decent living, but COVID-19, you know. Stuff happens. But any money that you guys do contribute here, it goes primarily just to expanding my ability with these sims. So I will be, I will be expanding my scenery library, expanding my aircraft library, and hopefully just providing more entertainment for you guys as well as for myself. So, but I do appreciate the subscription. Thank you so much for subscribing. Let's see here, runway heading. Let's get the charts up here really quick. So let's go to the menu. Show me the charts. Come in. Alright, so I'm just going to put up the stars as well. I believe we're on the 1 Bravos. Anyways, so the runway heading here on 22 is going to be 220 on the money. Perfect. 220 on the money, and then let's see if we have an altitude limit on the departure here. They won't board because we haven't opened the aft door here, so let's just do that really quick. Let's see, is there an altitude limit on this, or is it just as assigned by ATC? There's no altitude limit on this, is there? So, it would be assigned by ATC. I'm going to put in 10,000. I'm just going to leave that 10,000. That's a pretty good altitude to start. We should also make sure we have the correct altimeter setting here, 2978. The FO has already set it for us. Thank you, sir. It is handy to have an FO sometimes. Let's just test the lights. Sure everything is working, and I don't know if that's something they even I don't think PMDG simulates burnt out light bulbs, but the pilot in me says test the light bulbs, look around, make sure that everything is working. Because you can always call maintenance when you're still on the ground. Once you get up in the air, you could change light bulbs yourself. There's usually a stash of spare light bulbs in the flight deck, but it can be a real pain in the butt to try and change some of these little tiny light bulbs they have in these indicator lights. They're the size of a grain of rice, I swear. Alright, so we got the RTO there. Got N1's auto, speed ref auto. All looks good. All those are down. Probably make sure I have my thrust levers in the right position there. Park brake will help as well. And let's get Unicom up here as well, because we are flying on the VATSIM network as always. And if any ATC does come online, well, we can use it, but if not, we will broadcast all of our intentions on Unicom at the various airports. There's 22, come on, 22.8, there it is. And that's about it. 2,000 on the transponder set. And I think we're just about ready to go here. And Phase 12 says that he was watching some of my videos on YouTube about the how to fly VATSIM VFR, and so thank you for watching those. I'm glad you find them useful. I found that there's a lot of videos about VATSIM, but I find sometimes there's just so much to start with, and I encourage people to start simple when they start on VATSIM. So I'm glad that they're getting some use for you, and a little later on I'll pop my link to my Discord in there. You can watch out for my next ATC stream, and you can hop on if you want. Not encouraging you to do it if you don't want to do it in front of other people, but you'll know when I'll be online, and you can hop on in the airport that I'm on and do your circuits there. I promise I'll be easy going. All right, we got everything basically set up here. So pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested 100%.
Tested 100%. Navigation transfer and display switches. Normal. Auto. Window heat. On. Pressurization mode selector. Auto. Flight instruments. Load sheet for you.
Heading 220. Altimeter 2978.
Checked. Parking brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
I cut off.
Pre-flight checklist complete.
All right. Are you ready for the departure briefing?
Yes.
All right. So taxi out's pretty straightforward here. It's a very simple single runway with a parallel taxiway here. So we're at the terminal here. We're just parked right about here. So we're going to taxi out probably just straight down Golf and Alpha to get to runway 22. Actually, before I even give the briefing, let me check the NOTAMs, because I remember there was a NOTAM about part of Alpha being closed. Yes, Alpha between Golf and Threshold 22 closed, so we can't actually taxi here. It's closed per the NOTAMs. If I can get the NOTAMs. Come on. Right here, this NOTAM right here. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to go out Golf and backtrack runway 2 for the full length for departure, because there's some construction happening there on on Alpha, I guess. Okay, good that I've reviewed the NOTAMs before I did the whole briefing. So it'll be Golf and backtrack runway 22 for the full length departure runway 22. We probably could do it from Golf. That's probably at least 7,000 feet remain. Could we do it from Golf? Let's do this. Let's go back in the FMC and a runway 22. So let's say that the remainder is 7,000 feet. And that's still enough that we can take off with flap 10 with the power setting we had. It still gives us valid speeds. V2's now 147. In fact, we're a little bit lighter with the final numbers than originally planned. So we can just do it straight from Golf. That's about 7,000 feet. If this was a real world, I would acquire. The tower would have that information. They will have the exact distance from any intersection if you want to depart. I'm just estimating based on the chart. But 7,000 feet looks good, so let's do that. Rather than backtrack the whole way, we can totally do this. This is a 737. It's not a 777 or something. We can take off on a short runway. Okay, so we'll do that. The departure today is the Pt1 Bravo departure. So all the SIDs for the same runway are on the same page here. 10-3 Bravo, 13th September 2018. RNF1 GNSS required and radars required. SID requires a minimum climb gradient of 300 feet per nautical mile to 13,000 feet. Doing even 250 knots, it's only 1,600 feet per minute. So I think we should be able to easily maintain that. And the departure, it's straight ahead, max 220 knots until we get above 2,000 feet, and then it's a right turn for us, direct PR551. We have to cross at 200 knots at or above 9,000, then PR552 and Bob D at or above 220, where we join UT4. So let's make sure that's all in there correctly. So at above 2,000, then yeah, we go to PR551, 200 knots at or above 9,000, and then PR552, and then Bob D. So PR551 is the limit, PR552 and split off to Bob D, and that's at or above 200, and that is in there. So all the information's in there. We can take off in LNAV and VNAV modes today. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't get the flight directors on. That's what we didn't do. There we go. So we can take off with LNAV and VNAV today. In case of any kind of an engine failure, it's going to be initially straight out, and eventually we'll make a right turn to just follow out over the Pacific Ocean. We'll avoid the higher terrain, but shouldn't be too much of an issue. It's a VFR day. We can see everything that's out there anyway, so we can navigate visually to avoid the terrain. And weather otherwise, it's a beautiful day, operational. The NOTAM is the only one that affects us, is that closed taxiway. The airplane is fully functional, there's nothing broken, and yeah, NOTAMs are checked. Noise abatement, there's no published noise abatement, so we're just going to simply fly the SID as published. And that's all I have. Any questions?
No questions.
Alright, starting the APU, and I believe he wants me to close the door for, so let's see if they close the back door there automatically. They did. Okay, perfect. So we're just about ready to go. We're just firing up the APU now, and then I think we'll be ready to go here. And in the meantime, the one thing I didn't start up here is my flight tracker. So my Sim Toolkit Pro, I always use Sim Toolkit Pro to track my flights. I like it because of the logbook nature of it. I really enjoy the fact that I can log all the flights and keep track of all the flights I've done, whether it be for Pilot's Life or any other flying I've done. So here's my logbook. It's going to take about 60 seconds for it to load, but 398 flights spanning a lot of hours. Wait for the APU to start anyways, so yeah, there's my there's my flight history. So that's one thing I really enjoy. So we just go into flight planning, and it's really super simple too. Load from SimBrief, and then I can select which of the specific airplanes I'm flying and hit fly it now. And that's it. It's now tracking our flight, and that's all it took. It was about 3 clicks for me to get it done. Alright, so the APU is just starting now. It looks like the APU is available. Perfect. Cockpit to ground. Oh. Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead.
Please disconnect external power.
Roger. Disconnecting the GPU.
Alright, and
Hey guys, all passengers are on board. Are we clear to close?
go for it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Alright, so that's good. So let's see here. So we got all this. Prepare for pushback and departure. I think we can do that. Let's just operate the stairs and make sure that they go away from us first. Doors are...
The GPU is disconnected.
Doors are closing. Yeah, doors are all closed. The GPU is disconnected. Are the stairs moving? Why are they moving closer to the airplane? Okay, there we go. That stair's moving away, and that stair was moving closer, so I don't know what they're doing. Look, another airplane! Ah, who would have thought it? Oh, we'll actually have to make sure we pay attention on Unicom here, won't we? Okay. Let's get ready for pushback and departure. Before start checklist, down to the line.
Before start checklist to the line. Fuel 5.5 thousand pounds. Pumps on. Passenger signs on. Windows.
Locked.
Locked. MCP.
Heading 147, speed 220, altitude 10,000. Altitude 10,000. Altitude 10,000.
Checked. Takeoff speeds.
V1 144, VR 144, V2 147.
Checked. CDU pre-flight.
Complete.
Completed. Rudder and aileron trim.
Set and checked.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Complete.
Before start checklist completed to the line.
Now the GSX is out of sync, so we're going to have to reset it here to get our pushback. And now, there it is. Sometimes that happens. I don't think I did anything unusual, but for some reason the stairs got out of sync. One set of stairs was closed, one set of stairs wasn't. It didn't know what the stairs were doing, so anyways. Here we go. That guy's just taxiing in. I haven't heard him make a radio call either. We are on Unicom, right? Yeah, Unicom's up. We got transmit and receive up.
We're ready for pushback.
Puerto Vallarta traffic, WestJet 2153 at the terminal, pushing back from gate 12 for departure runway 22 from Gulf intersection. Alright, so they're just hooking up. Somebody's flying the CRJ. People love that CRJ now. Can't get enough of it. Where are we? Puerto Vallarta. CCG 228. It's actually listed as a B738, and yet it's drawing on this screen as a CRJ. What's going on? Where'd he go? There he is. Yeah, there is supposed to be a taxiway across there, according to the map, but it's missing from my scenery here. Because he's coming, I'm going to just hold for just a second on this pushback. I don't want to be a jerk and push right in front of him. So we'll see if he's coming down this way. Yeah. Alright, he's passing behind us right now. He's turning into that gate there, so we can probably start our push here.
All engines clear. Start at will.
Alright, so here goes our push. Now one of these days, I keep forgetting the fact that I can also... The PMDG threw in a... start sequence is 1 and 2. Start engine 1. Oh. Before start checklist below the line.
Flight deck door closed and locked. Anti-collision light on. Before start checklist complete.
Start sequence is 1 then 2.
Check.
Start engine 1.
Starting 1.
We now request your full attention as the flight attendants demonstrate
Yeah.
safety features of this
I forget that they can... that I can do a pushback with the tug myself in a PMDG 737 now, so I'm going to have to start actually doing that again a little bit just for fun. See how well I can make it work. Alright, anyways, we're starting the engine, so I should probably be focused on what's going on here. We got 20... looking for that 25. Here's the 25, boom. So we've got fuel flow, we got obviously an EGT light off. N1 and N2 are both rising steadily. Oil pressure's building up as well.
Set parking brakes.
Waiting your confirmation for good engine start.
Starter cut out.
Alright, so we got a good start on one engine. We're going to go ahead and dismiss the ground crew while we start the second engine. Start engine 2.
Starting 2.
Alright, we got N2 rotation. N1 rotation. Oil pressure's increasing.
To inflate the vest, pull firmly on the red cord only when leaving the aircraft. If you need to refill the vest, blow into the mouthpiece.
25, we got that on. We look up here, the valves are open. Should see some fuel flow, and we should see a positive rise in EGT there. Light off.
We remind you that this is a non-smoking flight. Temporary practice during the smoking section located in the lavatories is prohibited by law.
There goes 3 guys in a tow bar. 1 guy in the tow bar anyways. Should be a second guy here soon. Oh, there's the second guy. Company I worked for, there was always 3 men in the tow bar. There's always 3 ground crew at every push, so if you didn't see 3 men in a tow bar, then you wouldn't go anywhere. Alright, so we got starter cut out. Everything is stabilizing nicely, looking good.
Ride is clear.
Flaps 10.
Flaps 10.
And this one, I don't believe we have. Flight controls, no. So flight control check. It's unnerving to do a flight control check and not have any indicator in the flight deck to show you the flight controls. This is it's probably one of the only airplanes I think I'm aware of where there's I guess this and the Mad Dog. I guess maybe it just speaks to the age, but nowadays every airplane has sensors on the flight controls and it has some kind of a readout in the flight deck, so it's weird when you don't see that. Before taxi checklist.
Before taxi checklist, generators, on. Probe heat, on. Anti-ice, off. Isolation valve, auto. Engine start switches, continuous. Recall, checked. Auto brake, RTO, engine start levers,
Idle detent.
flight controls.
Checked.
Dispatch clearance,
Checked.
checked. Before taxi checklist complete.
Clear on the left.
Clear right.
Puerto Vallarta traffic. Good morning, WestJet 2153 is at the terminal. We're taxiing for departure runway 22 from intersection Gulf. Alright, so there was our fellow VATSIM's traffic. What are the odds? Although it's funny because Puerto Vallarta is one of the airports I have come to a couple times in my pilot's life career. And thank you. And I haven't, I have seen airplanes here a couple times. Sometimes you go to other airports and there's just nothing ever happening on the VATSIM network, but this is one of the places where there always seems to be other stuff happening on the VATSIM network. So I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm hoping that trend is going to continue because we're going to come back here in the next leg. So hopefully we'll see some airplanes here next time. Set taxi light to on.
Taxi light on.
So super short taxi. The cabin's not going to be ready by the time we're done this taxi here. Now this is listed as Foxtrot, but I believe it looks like since the scenery was made, there's been a small update. One additional taxiway was added here, so Foxtrot is now supposed to be perpendicular, and this is Gulf over here. And sometimes that's a weird thing you have to just deal with in the flight sim world, where scenery you have will not match your charts, especially if you're always flying current charts, which I really want to do as much as possible. So yeah, when you're flying current charts, but then the scenery doesn't match, you've just got to be adaptable is the big thing. So taxi light to off.
Taxi light off.
So we're gonna have to hold here because the cabin crew did not finish briefing the cabin on the emergency procedures in that short period of time. Creep up to that hold short line and just hold there for a moment while we wait for the cabin crew. And this is a real world issue often. Not often, but regularly. It depends on the scenario, but anytime you have like a really short taxi out at an airport, there they are.
The cabin is secure.
Before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Flaps.
Flaps 10 green light.
Stabilizer trim.
Set and checked.
Before takeoff checklist complete.
Puerto Vallarta traffic, WestJet 2153 entering runway 22 at intersection Gulf for departure. Depending on the circumstance, at certain airports it's a problem all the time where your gate happens to be close to the runway, especially depending on the specific airline and what gates you're always parked at. Some of them can be really short taxi outs where your taxi out is 2 or 3 minutes, and the cabin, they have to go through the whole safety demo. They also have to walk through and make sure everybody does have their seatbelt on, that all the items in the cabin are secured. So that usually takes about 5 minutes. So sometimes you end up sitting and waiting at the hold short line for 2 or 3 minutes while the cabin crew finishes all of their checks before they get going. Of course, then there's the opposite, the days where you taxi for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and the cabin was ready 17 minutes ago. Before takeoff procedure.
Check.
Come
Ready
on.
to go. Check.
Let's get out of here. Okay, before I even hit takeoff power, let's just make sure this is tracking. Yes, it is tracking. Okay. Guess it helps we have the auto throttle armed. There we go. Set takeoff thrust.
Check. Thrust set. Rotate. Positive rate.
Gear up. LNAV.
Check.
So we're just going to keep climbing straight ahead till we get to 2,000 feet. There's 1,500. There's the power reduction. But if I'm a little bit slow to pitch forward, then that just helps us get to that 2,000 feet, and there's the turn en route. Flaps 5.
Flaps 5.
And flaps 1.
Flaps 1.
Select Command A.
Command A.
Select Command A.
Something's wrong here. Command A.
Yeah, I was applying pressure to the control column so the autopilot would not engage. So we got to keep it at 200 knots till we reach that next waypoint at or above 9,000. So I don't think we're going to have a problem reaching it because we're adhering to that minimum climb gradient. We need about 1,500 feet per minute at 200 knots, and here we are doing 3,000. So should not be a problem to make that. But yeah, we're going to have to leave flaps 1 hanging out for just a little bit longer because we can't, the minimum speed for flaps up is about 215, so we're going to climb all the way to 9,000 feet with flaps at 1. Get an external view, barely even tell the flaps are out. I think flaps 1 is just leading edge slats there. Just in time for takeoff, thank you. Acquisitions, thank you very much for subscribing too. I appreciate that. Alright, so we're just departed Puerto Vallarta here. That's Puerto Vallarta falling behind us there, the beachfront hotels. There's the airport just out the window there. We're on our northbound departure back to Vancouver. We're now stuck at we're stuck in climb mode here. We have to reach at least 9,000 feet before we cross this point, and we also can't exceed 200 knots till we reach that point. So we're climbing like crazy with the flaps still hanging out at 1 to keep the 200 knot speed restriction until we get to this next fix, which is PR551. Sorry, PR551. Alright, but in the meantime, we can go ahead and set our cruise altitude because there's not much else happening here. There's no ATC online, unfortunately, today. There was another pilot down there, at least in Puerto Vallarta, so we saw another airplane. But otherwise, it's a quiet morning on VATSIM. And we can throw in terrain there just to kind of get some reference. So we're just going to sort of track the coast a little bit. We're going to sort of turn inbound after a little bit. And pretty much it's almost a straight line to Vancouver. I'll show you the charts in a minute. I just want to be ready here for when we cross this fix here in 8 miles, start accelerating and get the flaps up the rest of the way. I don't want to drop my guard until those flaps are all the way up. Although it is good if you depart in VNAV mode because the airplane will not overspeed the flaps. It will just simply hold the maximum speed. The maximum speed with flaps 1 is 250. You can see it right there on the speed tape, so it won't let us exceed that speed. But I don't want to forget about it either. As a sim pilot, it's so easy to get lazy, especially with the autopilots in these aircraft. It's so easy to get lazy and not not follow along with what the aircraft is doing. Just put in LNAV, VNAV, and walk away, and don't come back for 4 hours. So easy to forget that hey, the flaps are still at 1 because of that restriction in here. A hazy morning here. What was the temperature when we left? It was 20 degrees, which is a pretty nice day. Here in my house, it's actually raining. It's a rainy day, so there's 10,000 feet, but we have to make it to this fix before we can accelerate above 200 knots. So we're just going to keep this climb going for now.
To release the cabin now?
No.
Okay.
We can't even do the climb checklist yet because we're still waiting to clear this. restriction here, another 2.5 miles. Yeah, it's very easy to get distracted, especially and especially in the VATSIM world and in the Twitch world where you're streaming, you're talking to people. It's easy to forget about the actual functions of flying the airplane. So, just trying to keep myself a little bit focused on this while we sort of get accelerated here. I see the ignition still in continuous, but that's because he hasn't done an after takeoff flow yet because we have not retracted the last flap setting yet. So, there we go. Now we'll be able to do it. And I believe, according to the Boeing manual, as far as I understand it, as long as this green trend arrow hits that minimum speed, you can start the flap retraction. Flaps up.
Flaps up.
Just want to see it actually reach 0, and then we'll call for the after takeoff checklist finally. There's 0. Speed tape's wide open. After takeoff checklist.
Stand by.
Oh, now he's doing his flow. After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist. Engine bleeds. On. Packs. Auto. Landing gear. Up and off. Flaps. Up. No lights. After takeoff checklist complete.
Alright, now we can go ahead and release the cabin crew. And seatbelts off.
Release the cabin crew.
Already done it, buddy. Go for it.
Check.
Alright, so lights are all off. We're through 10,000. Now we're accelerating for our climb speed of 312, and we're underway, guys. So, there we go. That was a little bit of a, not a long departure procedure, but just had just a little bit of waiting involved there. So, of course, as soon as we get airborne, then the next thing is what time we're actually going to get there at. So, 1907 Zulu. And that's with a cost index, I think, of 41 today. So, let's do this. Let's throw it up over here on this side. 1907, 8.7 in the tanks. I believe we only needed 5.1 as our reserves, or 4.9 or something like that. Where was my flight plan here? Let's see. 4.9 for reserve. So yeah, so we got a little bit of extra fuel we can play with here. So let's go ahead and let's go into. Let's just do it this way. Let's pull them both up here so you can see. I think that's not being blocked by the overlay, right? Yeah, you can see the bottom line here. So 1907, 8.6. So if I go in here and I change the performance now, and if I bump it up to say 90. And that takes us back to 1859, 8.1. So it does take a little bit more fuel out of the tanks, gets us there about 10 minutes, 8 minutes sooner. What if I bump it up to like 250? Now you get some diminishing returns as we go faster and faster and faster. We lost another ton of fuel and we only lost about 3 more minutes. So that's probably not really worth it. What if we were to do about 150? And realistically, most of the time you're not going to do this. Airlines usually have a set cost index that they want their planes operated at, and they don't usually allow you to vary that too much. The only time you ever usually vary it is if you're ridiculously early, you can start bringing the speed back and the power back. If they tell you your gate's not going to be available, you can start lowering the cost index to give you more time. But usually they don't want you going any faster than their specific cost index. They figured out what's affordable based on their airfares and everything. Some airlines it changes from flight to flight. Other airlines it's pretty much fixed. The airline I worked for, it was generally fixed. We always flew cost index 25. The only time we ever saw a cost index that wasn't 25 is if we didn't have the fuel for cost index 25. So if it was a long leg, if it was a 4-hour leg, and we couldn't make it with sufficient reserves with cost index 25, then they start dropping the cost index even lower. But I never in all my time saw a cost index above 25. That was the company standard. 99% of the flights took cost index 25, and only when there was a real issue with the range with the fuel did it ever drop lower. Which is ironic, because those are the days you don't want to drop lower. When you've got a 4.5-hour flight, and then they have to drop the cost index to 0 because it's so long because of the headwind that you can't get there, that you have to drop it down to cost index of 0, and it bumps it up to a 5.5-hour flight instead. And you're just wondering if you're ever going to get there. So there we go. Anyways, underway. Another leg of a pilot's life underway. We got a long slog in front of us today here. Oh, there's the transition. Set standard.
Standard set. Passing flight level 186. Now.
Perfect. Bang on, buddy. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so there we are. So we're underway. I've been enjoying this, but as I was saying before, like, I'm really seriously thinking about switching things up with my next leg of a pilot's life. And I can't even show it to you now, because this is one of the few things I don't like, and the software seems to have stagnated a little bit. There was quite a few updates when I first started using a pilot's life. I haven't seen the updates for a little while. I don't know if the developers are really actively doing much for it. I've made some suggestions in the past. I really suggested that they tweak the that's one of the unfortunate things, is you can't even look around the whole rest of this software when the flight's underway, which is just a little frustrating, because I really would like to be able to show you guys stuff while we're in flight and review my career while we're in flight, but I can't do that. So the one thing I was thinking about doing was switching companies after I finish this season, and I'm really enjoying WestJet because it has a really great variety of destinations, but I've been looking around, and the CRJ in Microsoft Flight Simulator, it's such a fun airplane, first of all, although it does have its annoying problems though. ILS tracking is still not great, and the weird thing is, like, it'll work and then it won't work. It'll chase the glide slope just fine for the first half of the approach, for the first 5 miles, and then like 3 miles from the runway it'll suddenly just nosedive towards Earth, and if you're not paying attention, if you're trying to run the checklist and do everything else, and you look up and all of a sudden you're 2 dots below the glide slope and everything's red and the train warning's about to go off because you're way too low. And I find it weird because it'll track the glide slope perfectly for the first few miles, and then it'll suddenly just decide, nope, we're gonna track it we're gonna go 2 dots below the glide slope. But I really would like to fly that airplane because there's such great scenery out in the P3D world, first of all. Out in the MSFS world. The P3D world has got nothing on MSFS in terms of scenery. Not as many quality airports, but that's not to say they're not coming fast. They are coming fast and furious. The one that's really disappointing me is not out there yet is Toronto. Fly Tampa's Toronto needs to get in the sim. It really does. It's such an important airport to me, first of all. I mean, it is my home base airport. So it's important to me, obviously, but it's such a major hub anyways, regardless. It's probably one of the biggest hubs in the world that is not yet have some dedicated scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator. That it just has a default auto-generated scenery, and it's so bad. I can't even fly there. So what options are out there for virtual FMC or USB connected gear? Oh, okay. Yeah, there are. Yeah, I wonder when the Canada Sim update is coming for MSFS 2020. Sadly, I don't think the 30 million people that live in Canada are a big enough target market for Microsoft and the Sobo. And it's funny because there's lots of beautiful scenery in Canada. There's tons of beautiful scenery. There's tons of great, tons of interesting airports, lots of really neat routes, and lots of great scenery outside of that. But yeah, I just don't see it coming. There's so many other areas of the world. If anything, I would have hoped they would have kind of linked it to the USA update. But of course, obviously, there's tons of great scenery and airports in the US as well that they obviously want to focus on. So yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But acquisitions wanted to know how can you start using a good FMS. So this is what I recommend if you have. If I can get that, no, that's not aligned at all. Sorry, but. There we go. Anyways, and it's really terrible quality today. This webcam I have here is just it's a really old webcam. It's really low quality. But what I have here is I have my tablet, and I have an FMC on my tablet, and I think this is probably one of the best ways. You can get dedicated FMC hardware, but dedicated FMC hardware is ridiculously expensive. You'll easily spend $500 to $1,000 for an FMC. They do exist out there. I don't know. I've never used it. I don't know the quality, but easily $500 to $1,000 for a very dedicated piece of hardware. I really think that this is probably your best bet. So this is a program called AviaWorks. And let me find the website for you and show you. because I super highly recommend this. It's fantastic. So it's called AviaWorks, AviaWorks.com, AviaWorks, and all it is it's a little program that runs in your tray, and it basically puts out a web page for your FMC. So all this is here on my tablet. This is actually the web browser. This is just simply this is Chrome. It's an Android tablet, so this is literally just Chrome. And then within that is a fully interactive FMC. So if I can just give me a second here, zoom in on my FMC here, so I can actually press buttons on my tablet, press index, press legs, whatever you want to do, and the keyboard is fully interactive as well. So you can type in whatever you need to type on a tablet, and the tablet, depending on the size of tablet you have, can be very close to the size of an actual FMC. So it's a really super useful piece of software. I really like it for a bunch of reasons. First of all, it gets you the ability to interact with the FMC without having to look down at it all the time, and it's you're not craning your neck down here trying to do this or switch views. You can really just quickly type in a legs. Type in a direct to on the legs page really easily. It also takes away that mouse clicking fatigue. And I think most simmers know what I'm talking about. After a while, you get very used to, oh my god, everything is click this, click that, click that, click that, and you're just constantly moving the mouse around and clicking on things. And especially when you're entering in the FMC and click, 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 and your wrist gets so sore. It's nice to have a different input device. So AviaWorks FMC works with most of the major P3D FSX airliners, any of the really high-end airliners. So the PMDGs, the fly-by-wire, the Aerosoft, and the Fly the Mad Dog. It even has a Majestic Dash 8. And the other thing that's really useful with, or that's really nice about AviaWorks, and one of the things I like about it, the licensing version is it's not terribly expensive if you only buy one airplane, but it's a license per airplane. So each airplane that you want to have on your tablet as an FMC is a separate license purchase at €10. So it adds up quickly to if you're getting a whole bunch of airplanes. But if you have only one airplane, then it's totally worth it. The other nice thing is you can actually try it out and make sure it works on your system. So you can download it for free, use it for free. The only thing is that you can't type into it. You can view the FMC on your tablet for free. If you want to have the ability to tap the buttons on the screen and use the FMC through your tablet, then you have to pay for the license. So you get to test it out, make sure it works on your system, make sure it doesn't penalize your system, make sure everything works. It's really good like that. So yeah, if you're getting into the airliners, I highly recommend this. I think it's one of the best things you can do, because almost everybody's got a tablet out there. This is actually this is a really cheap tablet. This is my kid's old tablet. They got new tablets this year. So this was my kid's old tablet. It's really slow. It's really old. The battery does not hold a charge, but it just sits here on my desk. So I can plug it in all the time. No big deal there. It's a little bit slow, but it's more than fast enough to kind of work with an FMC. Yes, you can. AviaWorks only works with usually advanced add-ons, because there has to be the ability within the add-on to actually directly access the FMC. So it won't work with default airplanes, but the Aerosoft CRJ from for Microsoft Flight Simulator does work with this AviaWorks CDU, so you can use this with Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's all a question of the developers building in the functionality on the backside that this CDU can access the CDU can access what's going on in the airplane and be able to change stuff through like an API. So most of the major developers have supported them. They've all said that they like the guy who does this. It's just one guy who's programmed this software. It's really quite, I won't say simple, but it's it's not the most complicated software, but it's being basically developed by one guy. But all the developers that have worked with him say he's a super nice guy. He's really easy to get along with. He asks simple, and he's put out a great product that just makes their products more useful. So PMDG likes him, supports them. Like I said, Aerosoft likes him, supports them, and basically most of the major airliners in the P3D world. So if I can just show you, I think this will show you here the list of supported aircraft. So for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, it's only the CRJ right now, but for the P3D world, it's Aerosauce A318, the 21 family, their 330 family, their CRJ family, the Flight Sim Labs A320 family, the Mad Dog MD80, the Majestic Q400, PMGGs 3747, 777, the Quality Wings 87, I forgot about that, and the TFDI 717 as well. So all like the major study level add-ons that have enough ability to have a fully interactive FMC are all mostly compatible with AviaWorks. And then each one's just a little bit different to match, of course, the actual FMS. So that what will show up on your screen will look like the actual FMS for that particular aircraft, since different ones are a little bit different. So, really useful. If you're getting into flying airliners, I definitely think it's worth checking out anyway. So you can download it for free, try it for free on your tablet. You could even use it on a phone, you could use it on another computer, you can use it on anything. It's just a web browser, so any web browser will load up that page, and you can use it. It's just that tablets are just about the perfect size for being a CDU. Alright, sorry, Phase 12, I wasn't reading what you were saying there because I was asking acquisitions questions, but as far as Canada updates, I really see it being, unfortunately, a long way down the list. Canada is just a small country. It really is. It's not a big country. It's a decent market in flight sim, though. It's a well-off country. It's a first world country with a lot of people with a definite chunk of disposable income. So it's proportionally around the world. It's got a larger portion of flight simmers out there. But yeah, it's a question of, is there enough people to make it really worthwhile? And I'm sure there's lots of other places. See some other updates of some other countries as well. So I think they're going after demographics. Also, probably what information they have available in different countries. They're probably going to go after countries that have good information, so Canada might be on that list. But I don't see it being a particularly high priority, unfortunately. I wish. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Fly Tampa. I am sure that Fly Tampa will come out with Toronto scenery long before Microsoft Flight Simulator, long before Asobo ever publishes it. So, it's unfortunate, but I think that's, in the long run, is the way it's going to happen. So I'm hoping for that, because I've flown out of Toronto a few times and I just can't stand it. The default scenery is so terrible. And some airports you can get away with it, I think. You can get away with default scenery where airports are a bit simpler, perhaps. But Toronto is such a complicated airport. So very distinctive. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just biased because it's the home airport. I'll admit that. I could just be biased. But anyways, I need that airport to be improved for Microsoft Flight Simulator, because another airline I was considering. Okay, I don't know why it popped up. Another airline I was considering for a while was Jazz, because they fly a bunch of RJs around. Technically, they don't fly the CRJ 700s; they fly the CRJ 900s. But certainly, it is the CRJ family, so I could realistically suspend my belief and fly the CRJ 700 around in the Jazz paint job. But Toronto's a big base for them, so without good scenery in Toronto, I don't think I could do it. And this is one thing, like, I'm okay with kind of flying, in a pilot's life career, flying outstations that maybe are default scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator, because they're not too bad. And there's plenty of free downloads on Microsoft Flight Simulator that are pretty decent quality. But as far as the hubs are concerned, the places where my flights are based out of, and where I'm going to probably, that are going to be basically 50% of my flying, I have to have a decent quality airport available there. So either one of their enhanced airports, where they at least have put some effort into making a realistic looking airport, or obviously a payware airport. So for me, that's why I don't have a whole lot of really high-end airports yet for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Let's see here if I can dig them up here. I've been slowly kind of adding a few things. Now that there is the Aerosoft CRJ out there, I have actually started spending a little bit of money in the Microsoft Flight Simulator world. But if I zoom out here, these little green dots that you can see around this map here are my higher-end Microsoft Flight Simulator airports. So these are airports that I would consider flying into. So these are the hubs that I would have to look at least. At the very least, I would have to have these be my hubs. So that's why I think SkyWest with a Chicago hub, or maybe even Mesa with the Dallas-Fort Worth hub. And SkyWest also has an Alaska hub in Portland. They've got a couple of different hubs around. So definitely a consideration. One thing I've noticed is that I really don't have too many airports on the east coast of the U.S. The major east coast airports are not really well supported yet. One that I am really interested in, and I'm waiting probably for it to just go on sale for the first time, is Drzewiecki's KDCA. I think that's a great airport for the CRJ. Beautiful scenery, beautiful approaches. I'm looking forward to that, so I will probably try and work that into my streams at some point, because I think that's a fantastic airport. Doing the River Visual 19.
Would you like to fasten seatbelt sign to auto?
No, why is it on? You jackass. Yeah. They're KDCA I think will be a great one. Doing the River Visual 19 in Microsoft Flight Simulator with some good scenery at the end of that River Visual. Oh, that'll be a wonderful thing to do in the Aerostat CRJ. So those are some things I'm looking at in the not too distant future. But I'm really kind of now leaning towards in the my next Pilot's Life season, switching to Microsoft Flight Simulator at least for a season or so, and just trying the CRJ out and really pushing it. The trouble with flying the CRJ as well, and this is the other drawback that the CRJ has, that will makes it a little bit less appealing for trying to do this pilot career, is the lack of FS2 crew for it. And I'm hoping that that's a work in progress, and maybe that'll be solved soon. But this FS2 crew adds a remarkable amount of immersion when it comes to flying the sim, and certainly trying to simulate a pilot's career, flying a pilot's life. FS2 crew just adds so much to it with the radio calls, with the checklists, with you do half the job, and then your virtual FO does the other half the job. And just having the sounds of passengers boarding in the background, it adds a big layer of realism to me. A big layer of immersion. It makes it feel like we are trying to do something. It's not just fire up the sim and go flying whenever you're ready for it. You have to wait for the passengers to board and all that stuff. And I think GSX is the other one that kind of also really adds that immersion layer again with the pushback and the fuel truck and everything. So without those two things, I don't know if it's going to be quite as good to do airline flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we're getting there. It's still a new sim. It's, I guess, about 8 months old now. So we're getting there. But yeah, there's a few pieces of software that I kind of would like to see before I really think it's going to be quite up to the level of immersion you get here in P3D. So I don't know. I really am leaning towards it because I'm enjoying the CRJ and I think it's fun. But it's not just about the airplane, it's also about the whole, trying to, live the whole airline experience. And without the feeling that there's other people on board the airplane, and FO and passengers and cabin crew, without that feeling, it's a little bit more, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Like, it's lost something. I need more. Anyways, yeah. So that's what I'm contemplating, though. Yeah. So that's the thing, is we need some, especially without the voice interactivity of FS2 crew. I find flying the CRJ is more work than flying the 737, and the 737 is not an easy airplane to fly. There's a ton of stuff that has to happen, and FS2 crew really makes it efficient and makes it happen effectively, and having voice control, so I can call, when I'm focused on flying the approach, I can call for flaps, I can call for gear down, I can call for a checklist, and I don't have to take my eyes off the flying, because the FO reads the checklist to me. I just have to glance down at, okay, yep, the flaps are down, the gear's out, yep, all that stuff. I can glance down at it, but it doesn't, it's not a full distraction, whereas actually looking down at a checklist and reading the checklist and checking the item and reading the checklist and checking the item, by the time you make it through the checklist, you've traveled another 3 miles down the approach, and that 3 miles you weren't really paying any attention to what the airplane was doing. So I think without the voice commands and FS2 crew, I don't know if I can really totally support flying the CRJ yet in my pilot's life career. But I'm thinking about it. I'm on the fence. And I'll take it to you guys as well, I think, a little bit when we get a little closer to the end of the line here, whether you guys want to see it or not. So we're on our way. We got, let's see, what time is it now? It's 14:53. We're showing 18:55. So we got 4 hours from now before we get there. We got a long way to go. We got to fly up the coast of Mexico here. Up the coast of Mexico, across all of America before we get into Vancouver up there. So it's going to be a while still. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them. I really don't have anything. I was kind of watching the news feeds this week. Not much happened in the news this week. I apologize as well if anybody was expecting. Okay, you know what I haven't done yet is I haven't posted that Discord link. So let me do that now for you guys here. Just gonna put it in this chat stream here. Because the trouble with my personal schedule is my personal schedule just changes from week to week. It's hard for me to guarantee that I'm going to be able to be online on a certain what am I trying to say here? Like that I'm consistently online at a certain time every week. It never seems to work out that way for me. I don't have a whole lot going on in my personal life right now, but it just the few things that I do have always seem to sort of conflict with when I want to do stuff. And so what I've done is I've set up a Discord here, and if I can just cut and paste the link here into the chat. There it is. Where its primary purpose really is just to post, just to have a place where I can post the schedules in advance. I tried using the YouTube notification system. I don't think it really worked all that well, to be honest. So instead I'm going to use this, and it's just, you can save the link, save it as a Discord server, and you can just check in, and I'll try at least a few days in advance to publish when my next streams are scheduled to be. Of course, that being said, as soon as I open this up, and I opened this Discord server up just like a week ago, and I was supposed to do a stream on Friday, and of course life fell apart on Thursday afternoon, and I ended up having to cancel it on Friday. So like the second stream that I'd posted in my Discord, I already had to cancel, which is just the way life goes. And that's why I have a hard time sometimes committing to dates at times, because I know stuff is going to get in my way, things are going to come up, and I try to sort of set aside time. But especially these longer streams, these airline streams are long, 4 hours, 5 hours. It's a large chunk of life to sort of set aside and make sure you don't have any interruptions, any plans, anything going on. So it doesn't always work out the way anticipated. So I don't think too many people actually saw that schedule, but if anyone was out there watching that saw that and was hoping to see the stream on Friday and missed it, I apologize for that. Like I said, I had every intention of doing it, and then on Thursday afternoon my life just erupted into total chaos. And I was not able to commit the 5 hours that I was going to need on Friday to be able to do it, unfortunately. So it's been a little bit annoying, frustrating sometimes to deal with streams, and the world that we live in right now, with the pandemic going on and everything else, just sort of throwing curveballs all the time. It's very, very frustrating. So that's why I've hesitated from scheduling things in the past, because I knew it never worked, and I proved myself right the first week. But nevertheless, I'm going to try and do it. I'm going to try and stick to it. I'm going to try and figure out days and nights and afternoons and mornings and whatever that are going to work. So I'm going to try and commit to something later this week for an ATC stream. One thing for sure, let's see here. Across the Pond is coming up, first of all, in 2 weeks. So I should probably put that in there as I'm going to be scheduled across the pond. Actually, the controller schedules have not yet come out, so I'm going to be working somewhere in the Toronto FIR, because they are going to be handling all the arrivals into Toronto, which is one of the destination airports. So I'm going to be working in Toronto. I don't know where yet, and I don't know when yet. I don't know what the schedule is. So as soon as my personal controlling schedule comes out for that, I will post that in the Discord, because I'm definitely going to be online streaming some ATC for that. This weekend, I was contemplating whether I should do the next Pilot's Life stream, or maybe I should do a flight in the CRJ. And again, when it comes down to it, I'm kind of looking for flights that kind of match the airports that I have available here, but also interesting flights, different scenery. Yeah, I like that at least as long as you've subscribed or followed my channel, you'll get an email notification that, or you get a ping on your phone or whatever that I'm streaming. And if you have a chance to check in, great. The nice thing about my streams is they're usually long. The minimum, they're 2 hours usually. The shortest streams I ever do are 2 hours, ATC streams, and oftentimes they're longer than that. So even if you don't get a chance to log in right away, you can check in after an hour or two and see if I'm there. But yeah, I'm trying to think of different places I can fly with the CRJ. because there's tons of great scenery. Even the defaults, the enhanced default airports are not bad. The San Francisco, the LAX, Seattle, DFW. I've visited most of those airports now, and they're not the best airports in the world, but they're pretty good. They're not up there with like an FS Dream Team level, but they're definitely good. So things I was thinking about next, I'm kind of eyeing Colorado here, and I was thinking maybe doing like a Denver, something really short in the CRJ, but something like a Denver over to Aspen or Telluride or something like that would be a really great one. I feel like Jackson Hole's also got enhanced scenery. Maybe not. Or is that, I think Orbex has some Jackson Hole scenery maybe. Orbex is definitely getting a nice good stream of US scenery out Microsoft Flight Simulator, so I'm looking at some different airports there. There's various airports that I'm interested in. Another nice one is New Orleans. Latin VFR's done New Orleans, and there's a really nice scenic part of the U.S. as well. It's not mountainous, but it's very you come across Lake Pontchartrain and circle around over or see all the water features in and around New Orleans. That would be a fun one to fly to, I think, as well. So there's quite a few good ones out there. I'm just looking here. Yeah, Santa Barbara, San Jose. They don't have a ton out there. Burbank, but they're getting there. They're getting there. San Diego's another really neat one as well. I'm pretty sure Latin VFR has the San Diego out there. FS Dream Team has put out a few good ones as well. Key West, I think, would also be another really neat scenic place to visit. So there's quite a few out there. One thing I'll say about FS Dream Team, and kudos on them, man, they dropped the price of their scenery like crazy when this new sim came out. And a lot of their scenery is on the order of $10 US now, regular price. And they do have sales every couple of months, but even at $10 US regular price, I'm more than willing to pay for a decent airport for $10 US. So Key West, I think, would be one that's also kind of on my list of, I think that would be a really scenic place to visit in the CRJ. Maybe pick up the Miami scenery and fly down there, or maybe even do like an Atlanta Key West. So yeah, I think this weekend I might take a break from the pilot's life and instead swap it out for the CRJ and do another stream of the CRJ and do something like maybe Atlanta down to Key West might be a really good one. I'm just looking over here, and FS Dream Team always does a nice job. They always do a nice job with their scenery. So I haven't made up my mind 100% or anything, but I think that would be a good one to have. Would be Key West would be a fun one. So there's quite a few fun ones out there for the CRJ. We'll have to keep on. We'll keep an eye out for other good ones. Again, that's still North American centered, and I don't know why. There's quite a few good free airports out in Europe now as well, and I should probably expand my horizons a little bit more. Well, now it's kind of overcast. Not seeing too much out there anymore. Pity. So I was also thinking about this today. What other airplanes would you really love to see come to Microsoft Flight Simulator sooner than later? And one that struck me as one of the few airplanes that I have not flown. I think, first of all, I think the Dash 8. I think the 737 and the Dash 8 would be two really great airplanes to bring to the Microsoft Flight Simulator platform. I really want to see the Dash 8 come to the Flight Simulator platform. I think it's a fantastic airplane. Not the longest legs, not the fastest in the world, but it's just a great all-around airplane, great for squeaking into lots of smaller airports as well, so you can enjoy more of those airports out there. So I think the Dash 8 would be a great airplane. But one that I thought about recently, and I would love to try my hand at it and learn it a little bit at least, would be the Concorde. And I think somebody was talking about working on the Concorde for Microsoft Flight Simulator, but I can't remember who it was now. DC Designs, that's who it was. DC Designs is working on bringing the Concorde into Microsoft Flight Simulator. And they said it's not going to be a study level aircraft, however, you're still going to have your hands really full operating this airplane, with a price tag of around $40 US. It's a pretty reasonable price for an airplane. I would love to see that airplane. That's one that I have never really flown in any simulator, and a very different animal from the airliners. You fly the 37, the 47, the 777. You start to be able to fly most airliners without a whole lot of effort. You know, you fly a couple of Airbuses and you can fly an Airbus pretty well without a whole lot of extra effort. But the Concorde is just a whole different animal. Between the different management systems, a lot of it was a very manual airplane still. I mean, there was still a flight engineer in that airplane. It was a 3-crew airplane. So it was a very complex airplane. Lots of things to manage. Managing fuel distribution, weight distribution through the fuel system. You know, obviously handling the flight at a supersonic speed. Things happen quite a lot faster. A very high approach speed. Yeah, it definitely strikes me as an airplane that would be interesting to learn, definitely different from most of the airliner flying. And of course the neat thing is you can get through some really long haul flights in a relatively short period of time. You can do a transatlantic flight in 3 hours, you know, realistically, without having to necessarily just accelerate the sim. So that would definitely be an interesting one to tackle. I would love to try that one out. So I'm hoping that comes sooner than later, because it's not like a full-on study-level sim. I think it will probably be, you know, obviously there still is a big development curve happening in Microsoft Flight Simulator as all the developers are learning the system. But I think it's going to be I have hopes that it's going to be out there sooner than a lot of these. I have no hope at all for the PMDG to come to Microsoft Flight Simulator this year. I think they said fourth quarter maybe, or fourth quarter this year or first quarter next year, and I have very little faith. I'm not holding my breath at all. It'll be great when it happens, and when they announce it, I'll be happy, because I already have the NGXU here, so I have my $100 credit towards the 737 on Microsoft Flight Simulator, so that's great, and I'm looking forward to it, but I'm just not holding my breath. It's going to happen when it happens. And ditto for the Dash 8. I think Majestic wants to come to the Microsoft Flight Simulator platform with their Dash 8, but it's going to be a complete and total build, and as far as I can tell, Majestic's a very small development studio, just a handful of people working it, and they do a great job. But obviously when you're a very small studio with very small resources, any kind of development takes a long time, and I think they're focusing right now on finishing the last couple versions that they had planned for the P3D version, the training version, everything. So not holding my breath for that one either, unfortunately. Really, I think that would be one of the better ones to bring to it, because they did such a good job in Microsoft, or in P3D. Their Dash 8 is fantastic. There are a few little glitches here and there, but it looks really good from the inside and the outside. Generally everything more or less works the way it's supposed to. Like I said, there's a few glitches, but almost everything works the way it's supposed to. And it does have failures, which is also really neat, and I always love that. The ability to fail things. They don't really have random failures, and that's the only unfortunate thing as well. You can't just set surface-based failures, but you do have the ability, and I did that on the last the last flight I did in the Dash 8. I did a failure. I think it was a hydraulic failure. We did, so just for the fun of running the checklist and going through the motions of how do you handle a failure, how do you handle an abnormality, what are the implications. Thinking about the implications, we had to think about our landing distance because we lost the flaps, so we had to do a really fast approach. It was ridiculously fast. FS2 crew didn't like it. I remember that too. FS2 crew was not able to deal with it. Because so much of what FS2 crew does is sort of very, very scripted. The flaps have to go down before you can run the before landing checklist and all that sort of stuff. So I ended up botching it a little bit, trying to get FS2 crew to follow along with me, and at the end of the day I think I should have just given up on FS2 crew and just more or less flown it as a single pilot operation at that point. And nothing bad about FS2 crew. I mean, it's hard to program in all the permutations for abnormalities. They have done so, I think, with the 737 though. With the latest version of the 737, they have programmed some of the abnormalities into FS2 crew. You can run some abnormalities and have FS2 crew deal with them and help you deal with them. So yeah, that's that's a limitation, I think, of FS2 crew. But when it comes to airline flying, most of the days are pretty routine. They follow a specific script. It's not particularly difficult. It's not easy, but it's not particularly difficult to sort of set up a crew that can follow that script. However, when you're dealing with abnormalities, the scripts go out the window. All sorts of unusual things happen, and when you have two real-world pilots, then they can talk, they can discuss, they can deal with it, they can say, how are we going to manage the situation, and they can come up with a plan. You know, obviously with a scripted program, there's limitations to how much you can handle there, so. Speaking of the DC Designs Concorde, if you want to pick up the P3D FSX version right now, it's on sale right now. It's basically about 30% off, $29 US instead of 42. Must resist temptation to spend money. Because I'm looking at it right now and I'm thinking about it because, you know, like I said, like it's an airplane I would love to take out and fly. I think it would be a really neat airplane, just because it's very different from normal airline flying. Once you get into normal airline flying, there are obviously differences between the different airliners, but overall they're the same. Especially when you talk about all the airliners of a certain generation, they become very much the same. So, yeah, that's trying to avoid the temptation. I'm going to stop looking at that now because I'll end up spending money I don't have if I'm not careful. Yeah, so what else happened this week? There was not a whole lot. I was kind of keeping an eye on my news feeds this week, and I didn't see a whole lot come down aviation, flight sim related news anyways this week. The only thing I really caught my eye at all and I took any note of was the fact that FSExpo 2021 has been postponed. Originally was scheduled to take place in June. While the vaccinations are happening really quickly in America and they are making really fast headway, a lot of other places are not, unfortunately. Canada, unfortunately, being one of those places that's really not doing well right now. So definitely travel is not going to be back to normal by June. Although it might be approaching normal in America by then. So yeah, I think that was probably a wise move on their part, just delaying till September. I would love to go to it. I don't see myself traveling in 2021. Just too many unknowns to even consider planning anything at this point, not to mention the fact that unfortunately my salary has taken a giant hit from COVID since what it was a year ago, or a little over a year ago. So yeah, travel is probably off my radar for the time being, but I'm hoping personally to attend at FSExpo in 2022. That's my hope. When things are back to a bit more normal, hopefully things are kind of picking up again, the world's traveling a little bit more. Yeah, I'm hoping that I'll be able to go to FSExpo 2022, so I hope. That being said, FSExpo 2021 will have an online component as well. I think some of their seminars and whatnot will be broadcast online. I fully plan... I won't say I fully plan to attend. I definitely am very interested in attending. You know, it depends for me on the timing, cost-benefit analysis, obviously. But I am definitely considering attending all those things virtually. I think there's lots of great information that comes out of that organization. You know, and that being said, it's funny, some of the stuff. Like the first thing that comes to mind now was I watched the entirety of PMDG's presentation about global flight ops, and that was 2.5 years ago, I think now. And it's still not released. It's still, you know, heavily in beta. And it always seems to be just a few more months of beta testing, and they've been saying that for like a year now. So, not keeping my fingers crossed that it's coming out anytime soon. It's another one that I wonder about. You know, is it going to be worth what they charge? PMDG has a habit of charging a lot for their products, and they provide good products, but is it really truly worth what they want to charge for it? Without knowing what they're planning to charge and what the full feature set is, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I'll definitely interested in it, and I'll follow it along, and I'll see where it goes. But yeah, they have a history of charging a lot. What was the other one that was annoying me recently? One thing that's been annoying me a little bit recently, and I don't know if you guys have all encountered this or not, but if anybody who deals with Navigraph and the Navigraph charting system, the one thing that's been bugging me a little bit lately is it seems like they turned the timeouts on your account, saving your account login, so you don't have to log in every single day. They seem to have cranked that way back. Like, I swear I'm logging into my Navigraph charts almost every day now. Whereas before, you'd go like a week before, you know, you'd have to type in your login information again. But it seems like they turned it way back, and now it's like every single day you've got to log in again, and that's becoming frustrating because I have multiple devices that I also use. Like sometimes I'll have the charts up on my sim screen. Sometimes I'll use the tablet. My FMC tablet will double as a chart source, or you'll be using the charts in the aircraft, and you'll have to log in again and again and again, and that's becoming very frustrating. It's funny because like in my last stream I read about how Navigraph generally I think they charge what they charge maybe a little bit high for what they offer, but they definitely provide good service. And I'm beginning to take that back a little bit. They do provide good service, but this constantly logging in, just constantly, is really starting to drive me bonkers. And it's been going on a lot lately. So, I don't think anyone from Navigraph is probably watching this, unfortunately, but if you are, guys, can you just increase the timeout for our logins a little bit again? A couple of days, because I feel like I'm logging into my device every single day now. Yeah, okay. Well, if you're lucky, then. For a long time, I never had any complaints. I never had any problems with Navigraph, and you'd log in once on your desktop, and you wouldn't have to log in for a week or more before it would time out, and you'd have to just put in your login information again. But it just lately seems like it's been going down to almost every day from logging in again. At least that's the way it feels sometimes. I'll be going to bring up a chart, and I was just looking at a chart on the other page, and then I'll go to bring up a new chart for another airport, and I'll have to log in again. It's gotten very frustrating. So I think they provide a good service, but that's been really driving me a little bit nuts lately, is this constantly logging in. I mean, what they've done, their interfaces are fantastic, I've got to say. The way their interfaces unite across various devices, and no matter which device you're using, it's basically the same interface. It saves your flight plan, saves the charts you've pinned for your flight, so you can switch from your desktop to your tablet or whatever at any point, and pretty much seamlessly. I like that, but yeah, just the constant logging in has become a little bit of a pain lately. What else? The other thing is that oh wow, okay, and I was just looking here through the news feed, and actually the one thing that did come out is, of course, Across the Pond's slot lottery. Try to say that 10 times fast. Slot lottery. Okay, it's not too bad. But their slot lottery is underway right now, so or is open for entries right now, anyways. So open until April 13th. So that's tomorrow. So anybody that is thinking of participating across the pond now, if you haven't registered for a slot, do it now, because the slots are going to close. The lottery is going to close tomorrow, and then the slots are going to be selected. I think the slot system is great, first of all. I really think this is... I know there's been quite a few times that people have been oh, this is a really terrible system. Last time was the first time that they used it, but I really think it's a good system. I think, yeah, a few people got really annoyed because they didn't get a slot when they entered the system. There's a limited number of slots. I think this year it's 895 slots in total. It's a certain number, because they just, over the past years, the event has gotten so out of hand that there needs to be a little bit of a restriction on the number of pilots participating, because otherwise just the controllers just can't even deal with the number of pilots that are out there. So there needs to be a little bit of a restriction on how many people are participating. So I think the lottery system is the fairest way to do it, especially because everybody registers with their VATSIM ID, and if you register for the lottery one year and you don't get a slot, that can be tracked for the future year, and when you re-register the next year, you can have an increased chance of getting a slot that time. So it's worth noting that the lottery gives a slight bias towards pilots who applied for a slot last year but didn't get one. Doesn't guarantee a slot for those who didn't fly last year, but it gives a better chance of getting it, and hopefully will give it make it a little bit fair over the course of several CTPs, and as well, those who did get a slot last year that were lucky and won the lottery last year will apparently get a little bit of a negative weighting. So you might still win the lottery, but it's a slightly higher chance if you flew last year that you're not going to fly this year. And it's just trying to give everybody the chance who wants to fly. So there are people who will always complain about it who don't get a slot, I think, but I really do think this is the fairest way. The old system of the slots open up on a certain day, everybody log onto the website when it opens up and try and get yourself a slot. It wasn't really a very fair system. Those who had good internet connections, those who had good internet connections, those who didn't have an obligation for work or school at the particular time when their slot came out, those were the ones who got all the slots. And those people who maybe have a job and have to work that day the slots come out didn't get it. Phase 12, yes, absolutely. Across the Pond is VATSIM's biggest event of the year. So yeah, if you're not aware of what VATSIM is it's a virtual air traffic control organization, but basically it's a virtual world that pilots can join and fly within. So and may or may not have real world controllers, but even if there aren't real world controllers, as we saw when we left Puerto Vallarta at the start of this, you'll still see other airplanes out there as well when you're connected to VATSIM. So anybody who's connected to VATSIM, you'll see their airplane flying around in your sim as well. So you'll be able to see that and communicate with them and coordinate with them in and out of other airports. Across the Pond is VATSIM's biggest event. It happens twice a year. Let me just pull up the web page here just so you can see it, but at ctp.vatsim.net. But yeah, it is just that. It's across the pond. It is Europe to North America or North America to Europe. In this case, in the spring, it's always the westbound from Europe to North America, so departing certain fields in North America and Europe and flying all the way to North America and having complete and total ATC coverage from one end to the other. So all the departure airports that are listed will be manned, as well all the en route sectors you will ever deal with, so you'll never be without ATC coverage on the VATSIM network during that event. I don't see the list of airports right here, but if I probably click on make reservation, yes, VATSIM can have my information. Here's the list of airports. Okay, so it's doing it by city pairs anyways here for the lottery. But yeah, so the departure airports: London Heathrow, Manchester, Amsterdam Schiphol, Brussels, Frankfurt, Dublin, Lisbon, Oslo, Copenhagen, Milan, Malpensa. So all those departure airports, and then the arrival airports in North America: Toronto Pearson, Miami, Boston, Washington Dulles, Chicago O'Hare, JFK, and I don't know what Linden Pindling is. Is that Nassau, I think? I feel like that might be Nassau. But these are the arrival airports in San Francisco as well. Some of the options, some of the pairs are so long that they're not offered. I think Milan to San Francisco would be the longest flight in this across the pond. And it's so long that they're not even offering it as an option, because it would be like a 12 to 14 hour flight. And the time that people leave Milan, they would not get to San Francisco before the event ended. So there's certain combinations that are not being offered. No, and honestly, and acquisitions, thank you for that realistic take. Please, if you're new to VATSIM, don't come out on Cross the Pond Day to any of the Cross the Pond airports, because it is busier at most of these airports. It'll be busier than the real world is. Certainly in the COVID era, most of the airports in the real world are not that busy. But there's more traffic in certain areas on VATSIM on Cross the Pond Day than there is in the real world. The amount of traffic, 850 flights across the Atlantic scheduled, as well as potentially other flights that are not scheduled that people just log in and do it anyways. The controllers are very, very, very busy. It's not the day for a new person to have like their first or second experience on VATSIM. You need to be relatively experienced with VATSIM, certainly a decent pilot, able to deal with your airplanes, able to deal with very fast air traffic control on Cross the Pond Day. See, and you could do that, absolutely, yeah, acquisitions. If you wanted to, you could absolutely log in and just listen to the ATC. There's nothing wrong with that per se. Yeah, especially if you're new and you're not familiar with how VATSIM works, especially, and you know, you don't think you can handle a really fast ATC system. Yeah, definitely don't fly anywhere near these airports on Cross the Pond Day, because it is really overwhelming. There'll be hundreds of arrivals. You know, to take Toronto as an example, there are, I think, 300 arrivals, I think, scheduled over like a 4 to 5 hour window, which is a very high workload. And generally, most of these airports will be able to handle it, but it's going to be a lot of workload. The controllers are going to be very busy. They're not going to have the ability to deal with new people very often. So that'll be the one day to sort of stay away from Cross the Pond. But when you get a little bit more experience in VATSIM, take some time, and maybe in the fall, because it happens twice a year. It happens in spring and it happens in fall. In spring, they go westbound. They do the European airports over to North America, and then in the fall they go the other way. They do North America back to Europe. But if you spend some time over the next couple of months flying around VATSIM, getting used to it, participate in a few of the smaller events, you might be able to fly in Cross the Pond. And even if you don't fly in Cross the Pond itself, so even if you don't do the transatlantic flights for Cross the Pond, so you don't go, you don't have one of the event slots, that doesn't stop you from flying around. So if you don't have an event slot on the 24th, but you want to do some flying and you want to see some great ATC, you can go do it. You could fly from Boston to Toronto, and you'll have very busy ATC from one end to the other, because you'll have the controllers online. They'll be dealing with all the guys coming across the pond, and because they'll still provide you the service going Toronto to Boston. But just be ready for some very busy ATC if you choose to do that. But that's the great thing about Cross the Pond, is even if you don't get a slot, you can still participate. You can still provide traffic in other directions around the airport. So, if you don't get a slot but you've got a lot of time to fly that day, you can bomb around Europe, do 2 or 3 flights in Europe between different airports in the morning, and then by the time everyone starts getting to North America, you can log in somewhere in North America and do another 1 or 2 or 3 flights around between the different airports in North America. So you can definitely participate without participating. Even if you don't have a slot, fly some of the local airports. It adds a lot of great variety. The one thing that's very monotone about a lot of events on VATSIM is the traffic ends up at certain airports just being in one flow pattern. And yes, it's fun to handle a lot of traffic, but if it's all happening in one nice organized line already, it's not as much challenge. The bigger challenge for the controllers comes when there's airplanes coming from all sorts of different directions, and they have to sort of sequence and fit people around in all sorts of different directions. So I like to do that if I'm not controlling, and I usually am. But if I'm not controlling, I'll definitely log in and I'll fly around Cross the Pond a little bit. I'll do an arrival into an airport that's featured in Cross the Pond or something. Just because I'm not flying the route doesn't mean you can't enjoy that ATC service. But yeah, happens twice a year. This year it's April 24th. It's a big deal. It's a huge event. Every year on Cross the Pond Day, the connection record for VATSIM gets broken, and I don't even remember what it reached last year, but I think it reached over 3,000 connections to the network. 3,000 people connected to the network at the same time, which is huge, because normally on a normal day you're only dealing with about 700 to 1,000 people. I think right now, let's see, I'm just turning around and checking my VATSPy here, but my other computer, there's 1,072 people connected to VATSIM right now. Yeah, so on Cross the Pond Day, every year they break the records. It has happened for the last couple of days, and especially the last couple of times they've done it, and especially since COVID. The last year, the 2020 events were absolutely just off the wall ridiculous for the amount of people that showed up, because nobody had anything else to do. You couldn't leave the house, so everybody logged onto the network, and it was just unbelievable the number of people that were in the skies going every which way during Cross the Pond last year. So yeah, if you're new, absolutely, I highly recommend, if you're new, stay away. But once you get a little bit of experience in VATSIM and you can handle a couple of controllers talking to you quite quickly, and some handoffs and on the radio pretty quickly, it's a fun thing to participate in and see and hear that much traffic load. And ditto even for some of the other bigger events. The other event that I highly recommend that if you're new you probably don't participate in is just the Friday night ops, which is VAT USA's. Every Friday night in VAT USA they feature a different airport, and it is every week it is by far the busiest event. Generally you'll get probably 200 to 300 airplanes over like a 3 or 4 hour window arriving and departing from one airport, and just completely overwhelming. And it's tons of fun when you are participating, because it's great to see that many other airplanes out there in the airports and listen to them in the airspace, and tons of fun. But again, if you're a rookie at the network, yeah, you don't want to be participating in FNO either. Friday night ops is a little bit over the top for new people. You need people just to be on their game. The controllers can't. And I don't want to say babysit, because I don't want to be demeaning, but sometimes some newer people sometimes need a little bit of babysitting, they need a little bit of closer monitoring, and the controllers just don't have the energy and to be able to spare to do that on a busy night. So yeah, if you're new to VATSIM, I highly recommend just finding a quiet airport the first couple times. Logging in if you can during the middle of the day or early in the day anyways, when usually the network's not as busy, and get used to that. Stay away from those events in the beginning, because the events can be just ridiculous, and it's tons of fun when you're experienced and you know how to deal with it. But it's a lot of work too. It's a lot of work for the controllers. It's even a lot of work for the pilots to keep up with it. Travis, you fly in FNOs all the time and have no idea what you're doing. Yes, I know. I don't know why I keep asking you if you want to fly on Fridays for Travis, because I think you know what you're doing. I just think the CRJ does not know what it's doing when you're flying it. I'll say this, Travis. I think you know what you're doing when it comes to dealing with ATC, though. I'll give you that one. You know what you're doing when it comes to dealing with ATC, even if you can't make the airplane necessarily do what you want it to do, because the CRJ is not the best airplane yet. At least you know what the controllers are asking you, and you're not umming and ahhing your way through the frequency. And I think that's probably the most annoying thing to a lot of controllers when it's really busy, is someone who's a rookie and takes a lot longer on the radio than they need to. They're umming and ahhing their way through every transmission, and they're holding the mic down for a lot longer, because at the end of the day, for a controller, one of their most precious resources is time on frequency. And if you've got a guy who takes 2 minutes to respond to every radio call because he's giving way too much information, or he just doesn't quite know what to say, and he's kind of I'm at the flight level 230, and he's just umming and ahhing his way through the whole thing, and he's holding the mic the whole time, and nobody else can talk while that person's talking. It kills a lot of time, and it really sets the controller behind. When it's busy, the controller needs to be able to give commands quickly and get quick responses. And I think that's probably the biggest problem that they get with newer people on the network, is just people who are monopolizing the time on frequency when a lot of radio calls need to be made quickly. I feel like that was leading me to something, but I can't remember what now. Oh well. I have to call the flight attendant to get some more coffee here. Anything else interesting come up in the last little while? I don't see too much else out there in the news feed. A lot of airports. A lot of airports keep coming out for Microsoft Flight Simulator all over the place. Here's one that I've read, and it's one that makes me wonder. And that is that Field Air has announced that they're developing the Raleigh-Durham KRDU airport for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I'm not sure how I feel about this one, because I have purchased Field Air products in the past, and I have not been impressed. I have their Embraers. I had their Embraers in FSX and in P3D, and I was not impressed. The quality of those airplanes was really not what I was hoping for, especially for the price they charge. I think that was like $50 US maybe. And I don't feel like I really got totally my money's worth for it. The texturing, especially the texturing, I felt. The texturing and the objects in the flight deck were very kind of crude, I think is the best way to say it. The objects in the flight deck were very crude. They were very kind of blocky, and you know, I didn't see like the individual textures on them like you do in this flight deck. Like all the switches, I think crude is the best word. So I was not impressed with their Embraers. They flew okay. The FMSs were mostly pretty good. They mostly did what they were supposed to, but then they also occasionally had errors that would cause problems. So I was not a huge fan of their airplanes. I love the Embraers, but just their models were very kind of meh, and not totally worth, I think, the price paid. So question becomes then, when they're dealing with scenery, are they going to be able to make good enough scenery? I'm curious about I'm curious if other people commented on this, because yeah, obviously scenery is easier than airplanes in a lot of ways. You know, it's relatively static for the most part, so yes, you can put a lot of detail on there, but you don't have to worry about the dynamics of how programming things to interact with each other. But I'm curious what other people think about the idea, because yeah, I have issues. Some people seem enthusiastic about it, but yeah, I don't know. I was not impressed with their Embraers. So that being said, I mean, the one photo here, it does look really nice. Of course, that being said, you can always put your best foot forward. From this distance, it doesn't look too bad. So maybe it will be an okay seater. You know, I shouldn't put them down before we see it out there, but just based on what they did with the Embraers, not impressed with that. So, but it seems like scenery design. Yes, well, that too. Yeah, absolutely. Seeing the scenery from this distance, like a big giant overview of the airport, of course it's going to look good, and you catch it with a nice sunrise there, so it looks really pretty and catches your textures and everything in a nice way. Yeah, you can obviously make it look really good in the screenshots. Yeah, the question is, how good is the texturing when you get up close? Because I was not impressed with their texturing on the Embraers in FSX or in the re-released P3D version. I had both versions, and I was not impressed. Seems like probably most of the effort they put into that airplane probably went into the FMS. The FMS actually was pretty good. It's a fairly distinctive FMS. It's not like the Boeing and Airbus units. It's got its own distinct ways of working through. You know, it's an FMS, so it still has some of the basic functions, but it's definitely different from the Boeing and the Airbus FMSs. So they definitely had to do some custom programming for that. It was not bad. It had a few problems here and there, but overall, if you followed the normal standard workflow through the FMS, you could generally get it to work pretty well. So I'd say the FMS was probably about 80% of the way to the real thing. It was more just when you try to do something a little out of the box that it would choke on it. It would have problems with it. But yeah, the texturing in the airplane was just garbage at the end of the day. You know, it had the basic layout, and you could sort of sit in it and say, yeah, okay, this is an Embraer, but boy, the switches were just very crude. So yes, but that's the thing. In a flight deck, you're going to be sitting here in the flight deck half the time staring at it. It's not about the exterior model to me. I mean, the exterior models are great, and you want a decent exterior model, but especially for people trying to simulate flying an airliner, you're spending 90% of your time in the flight deck looking around and working switches in the flight deck and throwing switches, and if the switches look unrealistic, it just shatters the whole illusion that right then and there. So yeah, I wonder how they're gonna follow through in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and it seems like Microsoft Flight Simulator, you know, supports better scenery overall and better scenery development. There's tons and tons of great scenery coming out all the time. People are just churning it out like crazy, and it seems to me even the freeware scenery is a lot better than previous versions. So it seems to me like perhaps scenery development is a little bit easier in the Microsoft Flight Simulator platform. Maybe they've made it a little bit easier to develop things for it, because it definitely looks like people are putting tons and tons of scenery out there. You know, even freeware. There's some really nice looking freeware out there even. So I wonder if the development is a little bit easier. But yeah, it's going to come down to what does it look like up close. Because some of the airports over time that I have, the payware airports that I've liked the least, are the ones that look good from a long way away, and they've got all the overall buildings and the shapes and everything, and they've got a nice ground texture or whatever, but then you get close to the buildings, and the buildings are still very low quality textures when you're parked at the gate. And that to me is one of the biggest things that developers do need to kind of make sure of, is that the places where you're really going to see the airport are where you really need to focus the detail, focus the quality, is those places. And as boring as they are, the gates are probably the biggest place that pilots are going to be sitting there staring out the window while they're setting up their FMS and looking up and down, and they're going to see this a lot. So whatever's right in front of you at the gate needs to be decent quality. What's on the other side of the terminal building, on the ground, on the land side, doesn't really matter as much. And I know a lot of developers will put some effort into detail and that, make it look nice, and that's fine. But make sure you expend plenty of effort and make sure that the gate areas look really good, because you're going to be parked up close to the buildings in those gate areas. And some of the sceneries in the P3D and FSX platform that I've liked the least, in terms of payware sceneries that I've liked the least, are ones where the texturing on the terminals close to the gates is very poor. And you're just sort of staring at it and you're like, this is just barely better than default because the texturing is so poor. Anyways. Don't think there's too much else out there, really. Lots of different sceneries out there, but that was about it. Yeah, I don't see anything else, really. No other real news, I think, in the flight sim world. Just sailing along. And still no ATC online anywhere yet, right? Oh, actually, there will be an LA Center in a little bit here. LA Center's online. Okay, cool. So we are going to have some ATC for once, because all the way down to Puerto Vallarta on my last stream, we did not. Not 1 minute of ATC on the last stream. So we are going to have a little bit soon. So I think I'm going to step away for about 20 minutes, half an hour here. Maybe go refresh my cup of coffee. Let's see how long before we get to where we're going to run into LA Center here. So I think so that's Tucson, Arizona. So somewhere after PXR, I think we're going to run into LA Center. Let's see if I can bring it up on here as well. It should be on. But for some reason it's not showing up. The VATSIM ATC is not, the feed is not loading correctly here. Now I know that they've VATSIM recently changed their feed, so I wonder if it's because I haven't updated recently enough here. Because I'm on 660 and 676 is available, so maybe we'll really quickly update that. Yeah, because it's a new install for this. So let's see if we can do this really quickly here. Because that's what you want to do midstream, is install software. Travis says, don't worry, if they see me coming, they'll log off before I get there. Which is true. That's always the way it happens for me. Alright. Bum. Installing. Maybe. Thinking about it. Installing latest update. Ooh, pretty. Yeah, so Phase 12 asks if there's a schedule. There is no universal schedule in VATSIM. Because it's all a volunteer organization, people just log in whenever they can, and oftentimes, for myself especially, it's not pre-planned. I just suddenly like, okay, now I have 2 hours, now I know I can log in. So now we got this back up and working again here. Let's see if the live map works here now. There it is. Yeah, okay, now we got the VATSIM feed working there. So, yeah, somewhere after after PHX, after we fly over Phoenix, we'll be into LA Center. Yeah, there is not a universal thing on VATSIM to display scheduled ATC coverage. That being said, the different ARTCCs, the different FIRs, all the different groups may have their own schedules that they may publish on their website specifically. So let me see if I can find one here. Los Angeles is a pretty popular place, so they may have it. But yeah, there's nothing universal, unfortunately, to tell you when there's going to be ATC online. But let's see. So here's the guy who's online right now. No, they don't have a... No, they do not have one. Some places do. I'm trying to think of where I've seen it before. Where controllers can sign up and say, hey, I will be online at this time. Oh yeah, so So Boston does. So here's the website for the Boston ARTCC here on VATSIM, and so here's expected ATC coverage. So someone has said that they're going to be online on Boston Tower today between 13 and 17 Zulu. Tomorrow, Boston Center. People sign up for different periods of time. So there's no universal place, though, on VATSIM where you can look this up. Different controllers or different organizations within VATSIM, different controller divisions will specify, may have it on their website where they have a sign up for their controllers. But yeah, there's nothing universal for VATSIM. The only thing that really is universal for VATSIM is looking for events specifically. So obviously, if you want to participate in an event, or even just look on the events page here, any of the events listed here, obviously these are planned to have ATC coverage. So for example, today, is this today? Yeah, Monday, April 12th. There's a Brussels to Budapest shuttle. So there will be ATC online at Brussels and Budapest between 17 and 20 Zulu. So if you're looking specifically for coverage, you can always look for events and try to participate in events. Some of them may be busy, some of them might not. So if you're new, you may want to stay away from them. I'll suggest the Boston ARTCC. They're a really great organization. A lot of their controllers are really friendly, so they have a schedule of when they're going to be online, different places, and you can look it back at one of the smaller airports. So maybe not go to Boston Tower, but Bradley Approach. Bradley's a smaller airport, so you could log on at Bradley and just talk to this approach controller on Wednesday night between 20:30 and 21:30 Zulu. So yeah, you can look for some of the smaller ones. These really go on, like these guys are on into May. There's some more just events now, but there's some people signed up for May 14th already. Anyways, yeah, sorry that yeah, there's nothing universal for VATSIM. It's just because people volunteer their time. Like personally, I never sign up for ATC ahead of time because I can never guarantee I'm going to be there. Stuff always seems to come up in my life. I would love to, because I know if you can be online at certain times and tell people in advance, people will often try to, plan their arrivals or their departures around your schedule. But yeah, my time is just every time I've ever tried to do that in the past, something comes up as often as not, and I end up having to cancel. Cancel as often as not. So, anywho, yeah. So I think I'm going to step away. Yeah. I just see LA Center's online already on VATSI, so that's why I know they're coming up. They're coming up in about, okay, so yeah, I was going to look this up here. Let's see here. Go to route data. So we're going to cross Phoenix at about 16:20 Zulu, so that's in about 35 minutes from now. And it's going to be somewhere shortly after that we're going to enter LA Center. So I think I'm going to step away for a little bit now, for maybe about 40 minutes, so that way I'm back here for the LA Center. Refresh my coffee, maybe give my voice box a little break here. But we'll leave the stream up and running if you guys want to just stay tuned in there. And like I said, we'll probably be back. We'll be back probably about 40 minutes. I'm going to say no later than about 16:25 Zulu, so about 40 minutes from now, and that'll just give us some time to get online again before we fly to LA Center. Get some Timbits. I don't know where I'm going to get some Timbits down here in Mexico. But yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate the conversation. I'm going to try and find some stuff to talk about as well while I step away. And if you guys think of anything, just post it in the chat right now, and I'll read the chat. I'll read the chat when I come back. All right, so let me just pop this up there. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Like I said, be back in about 40 minutes. In the meantime, if you want to stick with the stream, feel free. Otherwise, I will see you guys in about 40 minutes.